The Reformed Gamers is brought to you 100% independent and ad-free thanks to our dear patrons over on patreon.com/thereformedgamers to get yourself sweet, sweet perks such as uncut early access to the episodes, special episodes of the podcast, and more. Head on over to patreon.com/theformedgamers and consider lending support and joining the herd. Without further ado, let's hop into the show.
Hello and welcome to episode 168 of the Reformed Gamers. I am your host, Adam, and today we have a very special guest host. We got Clay All Day Hargrave from years past, but now he is the board game developer, Clay Hargrave. Clay, it's great to have you back.
Hey, it's great to be here, Adam. It's so funny to hear my nickname after all these years.
Clay All Day. Some of you, if you listened to the podcast years ago, and we'll get into this later, Clay came on back in 2018 and we shared some of this stuff. But Clay and I go back to 2005, 2006. We went to college together, lived in the same dorm. He was one room over next to me. We bonded quickly in our love for the Dallas Cowboys. Not so much over singing because Clay's got a great voice and I don't have a great voice. But over video games, over Cowboys, we were in a similar friend group. And so it's fun getting to reconnect with him on the podcast. And I mean, just throughout life, since then, we've got to be reconnected at different seasons of life. So I love that I get to have him on here to reminisce some, but also get to talk a little bit about what God's been doing in his life through the podcast and then in his family's life and then just in his day-to-day. So thankful to have him today. Clay is not Logan. You may have noticed that. Logan this is supposed to be, I believe, the last episode that he won't be joining us here on the podcast. So he should be coming back next episode because it looks like we may be talking about PC. And if you know anything with Logan and following his Twitter, Twitch, he's building a PC and he's all gung-ho about it.
I think he's posted a picture of his new video card like once every 5 minutes. I think
he's real excited about it. He's gone Twitch famous. He's got all these subscribers and he's got him a PC and he's about to hit it big time. So him and I think we got a special guest coming on there. I may be on there just to give him a hard time about his Excel that he's going to be playing around with in the future. But so that's where Logan's at. But we're excited to have him potentially back next episode. A couple of other things for housekeeping. Check out the website. Wesley's got us another article there, a retrospective on Final Fantasy IV. Pumping those out every time we have a new episode. He's got a new article up for us. Join us on the Discord if you haven't done that. You can find us, in the show notes. You can find us in Facebook group, all those different things. You can find our Discord there. Follow us on Twitch. Mainly follow Logan on Twitch. Like I said, he's really been crushing it lately. He's got a new schedule. If you're not aware of that, on Fridays he's recording or he'll be streaming from 9 in the morning to 12, that's Central Time. And then Saturdays, 9 to 12, 9 in the morning to noon. And then Sundays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So check him out. He's really been doing some awesome things there. I think he's playing Metroid for May. Metroid May is what he does. So you can go check that out. Check us out on Patreon if you want to support us with $1 or $5 or $15, whatever. If you want to support us that way. If not a big deal. We love you guys listening to us. But if you're not able to support us on Patreon, maybe go to iTunes, give us a rating or review of the show. We'd love to have that also. But with all that, let's get into a little bit of what we've been playing and a little bit about what we've been reading. So, Clay, let me throw it to you. It's pandemic time. I know you're working from home, so it's not like you've just been sitting around playing Animal Crossing all the time, but you've had to work some. So other than Animal Crossing, what have you been playing?
Yeah, so with quarantine, I figured this is a great time to get caught up on some bigger games. One game that got away from me in 2018, I think, was Persona 5. I got maybe 30, 40 hours into that game back then, and then I just stopped. I loved it, but I just stopped. So Persona 5 Royal came out, and I picked it up. and I played it pretty much nonstop until I beat it. And I think the logged time at the end was 145 hours.
Wow.
On the save game. I did everything that you could do in that game. I saw it. I completed the persona list. I went all the way through. I did everything. And it's actually an interesting experience because when it was over the next day, I almost fell into this like straight up like deep-seated depression because it was over. Because
you sound like Logan with Persona 4 Golden, if you've ever heard him talk about that.
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
Persona 5 is just filled with the most amazing characters. And what makes it such a special game and special experience is these characters feel very real and they feel consistent and imperfect. And so as you're discovering these characters and as you're getting to know them and your bond with them grows deeper, you start to love them the way that you would love friends in real life. It's really, really, it's almost creepy how effective it is because you really do feel like they're real. And I was just sad. Like when it was over, I didn't have Ryuji to scream profanities at how angry he was at everything around him. I didn't have Morgana talking about how he was constantly wondering what his purpose was in life and what the journey looks like to figure that out. And, I could go on and on and on about the characters and then just the gameplay and the style. And oh gosh.
Yeah, it's a great. I played Persona 5 when it first came out. I think I put somewhere between 90 to 100 hours. I kind of got burnt out. I kind of got burnt out towards the end.
Yep.
And so I think I ended up just doing one of the bad endings because I didn't want to play it anymore. I mean, it was not a bad way. I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was just, if that game was on the Vita, like Persona 4 was, I would have kept playing it. But I love the mobile aspect. Did you ever play Persona 4?
No, I didn't. It got away from me. It's on my list.
You got to find yourself a Vita.
I know.
Get on Vita Island just for Persona 4 Golden. If you like Persona 5, you're going to love it.
I know.
Find someone and borrow one. You got to know somebody in your world that's got a Vita that they don't play anymore. It's just sitting around gathering dust. Find that because it's excellent. That's what got me into these games. I would have never, you asked Adam 5 years ago, I would have never touched a Persona type game. But I got me a Vita. Logan talked me into Persona 4 Golden. And I love Persona games, and so I won't go back to Royal because I heard there's a lot of content that they added, and similar stuff for what you're saying. The attachment to the characters is kind of crazy. You really spend so much time with them, and the way that they do the days in that game, where you're choosing who you're spending your time with, all those things, they really do make you. I don't want to say fall in love, but you really get connected to those characters. So it's. I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying. I think Logan might be going back actually in Persona 5 Royal. Because I don't know. I'm pretty sure he finished the original, but I think he's going back for more because, he loves some Persona games. He even plays the dancing all night games.
Yeah, the dancing games. I thought about getting into those, and then I kind of stopped myself. I was like, I'm not going to play these. But I will say the Royal thing, I've seen some, editors, especially online, they're about as fanboyish as you can get about Persona. I would hesitate to say that it feels like a brand new game. I've seen that phrase thrown out there a lot. It does not feel like a brand new game. However, it definitely feels like the essential version of the game. They've made a lot of really smart, really good changes to the combat system, and they've made a lot of really good really quality of life changes to the overall confidant system, in that it's much easier to raise your confidants now. And
that was a challenge in the OG one. It was. Sometimes I'm like, what I got to do to get this confidant better? But
I would say this, that by the time I beat the game, and by the time I got towards the end of it, I never had to worry about my stats, like your knowledge and charm and all that stuff. Those leveled up naturally and all of them were at max well before I reached the end of the game. And I maxed out every single confidant really without trying to. Like you get the opportunities in Royal to where you're not, you don't view the timer as a stress point. You view the timer as an exciting opportunity. It's not, how am I going to get all this done within 15 days? It's, how much can I get done in these 15 days? And it's a very important fine line to flip. And they, I think, nailed it with Royal. So I think Royal is significantly better than the original. However, if you put 100 hours into the original, I'm gonna say you're probably good. I'm not gonna.
Ain't nobody, one of my famous things with here that I stole is ain't nobody got time for that. I ain't got time to go back and put another hour, 100 hours. I can barely get the games that I already own done, let alone go back and play another one again.
Right, exactly. I get that. It's a hard game to recommend because it's 130 hours minimum, and it's.
Yeah. I think someone just posted I think the completionist just talked about I think it's a YouTube. He just posted his completionist run or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think he spent 500 hours doing everything.
Crazy. Oh, it's so insane. Yeah, so maybe I didn't do everything I thought I did, but clearly not. I did not put 500 into it.
Yeah.
But I do see on this sheet moving forward that you and I both looks like we finished Final Fantasy VII Remake, huh?
Oh, yeah. I'll let you I've talked about the last couple episodes. Why don't you give me your impression?
Well, okay, so anybody that's listening that doesn't know, which is probably everybody because most people listening probably have no idea who I am, Final Fantasy VII is the most important game in my life, in the history of my life. It's what got me through my parents' divorce when I was younger. So I was going through a really hard time when I played it, and it really changed my life. It was comfort, and I played it for about 2 years straight. I just kept beating it over and over and over again. My parents being split didn't have a lot of money, and it was the only game I owned on my PlayStation that my brother gave me his old one for like 2 years. So it's the only thing I played. So I know Final Fantasy VII like the back of my hand. I could write a walkthrough for it. So Remake for me was a very special game. I probably cried, 5 or 6 times. I was squealing like a little baby every single time Sephiroth was on screen. My overall impression of the game is that it is a love letter to fans like me in a lot of ways, but it's also challenging to fans like me in a lot of ways, in that it challenges me to trust them to move forward in a unique direction.
To finish the story in the next 15 years.
Yeah, and not only did they only get to a very short end cap point of where the original goes, they made it more complicated, which I found interesting. But I don't mind all that. I thought that the way that they did it, it felt very consistent. A lot of people have complained about it feeling very Kingdom Hearts-like. I didn't get that vibe personally. It did not feel that muddy to me. It did not feel that convoluted to me. It felt very easy to follow. And so
nothing is as convoluted as Kingdom Hearts.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's a whole nother,
that's a whole episode on its own, dude.
Yeah.
But anyway, all that to say, I absolutely, I loved FF7 Remake, and it is to date my favorite combat system, maybe of any video game I've ever played. I love playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's just so satisfying. I love the combat system in that game, and the characters and the character designs, the combat designs, the boss fights are just incredible in that game. If there's one thing that I will say negatively about it is I do think that there's padding in there that doesn't need to be there. But that's fine. It wasn't much. It's probably like 5 hours in the game that could have been cut.
Yeah.
And those 5 hours were inoffensive. They just didn't enhance. Like the chapter 14, when you literally just went through the sewer again. It was the same area, just again. And in the same boss fight too. Just stuff like that. But for the most part,
and that boss, I hated that boss too.
Oh, that boss was brutal the second time. Oh, yeah, it was brutal. But I loved it. I thought Final Fantasy VII Remake was an incredible game. I really did enjoy my time with it.
I think the last time we recorded, all I had left was the final boss fight, and so I think by the time we were done recording, Hannah was asleep. So I went in there and I think I finished the game right after the episode. And I don't have any. I'm the opposite of you. I've never played anything Final Fantasy before this game.
Oh, interesting.
I loved it. I really enjoyed the game. I hate that it's going to be forever till we finish whatever they did. Like, that's kind of heartbreaking to me because I really I love the combat. Like you said, the combat was excellent. The graphics were great. The voiceovers were good. I mean, there's so much. The world is super intriguing.
Yep.
So I'm really excited to play more, but it just breaks my heart that we don't know.
I know
what it's going to be.
Imagine me. Yeah. And like Jesse, shout out to Jesse Knapp, big fan of Jesse on the in the Facebook group. He's always saying stuff that cracks me up. But I know he's
Jesse's the man.
He is. He's awesome. He loves Final Fantasy VII. Him and I, we're sort of spirit animals in that way. He says things, and I'm like, yes, Jesse, yes. But one thing that I don't want to. We could talk about Final Fantasy VII literally for 500 podcasts in a row with me. But I'm curious, just as a basic question, Adam. There's a lot of things that happen in it that are super weird. That unless you're a fan of the original and know where it's coming from my perspective, would feel sort of like what in the world is going on moments. The number one that stands out is the house. Do you remember the house fight in the cup? How weird was that for you?
Well, again, I expect weird when it comes to JRPGs in general, especially Final Fantasy. So the biggest thing with those moments is I didn't think about it as much as the house, but I could tell when it was an Easter egg or a moment pointing to the future that wasn't going to be in this one. They make those like, there was one point this little like, well, I don't want to spoil it for some people, but there's multiple times throughout the game where in the middle of a cutscene, they'll show a character, they'll show a person. And I'm like, okay, if I had played the original or any of the other spinoffs or whatever, I would know who that character was. Yeah. But I know that it's just, I'm missing that because that's fan service and it's not going to apply to me. So I expect the weirdiness when it comes to Final Fantasy. I'm glad it wasn't over the top, really. I mean, I tried to play Final Fantasy 15 and I'm like, I can't do this. Like,
I could never get into 15 either.
But this one, I mean, it had me in from the beginning. And so I really liked it a lot. But let me pose this question. So it's hard to come off one of your favorite games of all time, talking about the original and then this one, favorite battle system. What would you say is your most anticipated game coming up in 2020 from here out?
Cyberpunk.
Okay.
I'm a huge CD Projekt Red fanboy. I've been kind of playing their games and following their studio for a long time. I'm one of the few people I know that played the first Witcher like when it was new, and that game was weird and not great. To be entirely honest, like it was very different, and I loved it, but it was a deeply flawed experience. And I'm actually one of the people that I think Witcher 2 is the best game they've ever made. I think Witcher 2 is significantly better than Witcher 3.
Hot take.
I'm in a minority on that, and I fully understand. But the reason why I loved Witcher 2 is because it felt like a really tight knit tour of this fully realized world, rather than being plopped in a massive sandbox. And The Witcher 3 is so huge that it turned me off of it.
Didn't you beat it on like Death March or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I'm insane. That's what I do. But my time with Witcher 3 came away thinking about how great the mechanics were and how in-depth things like the interactions with the different systems that they created were. My time coming away from The Witcher 2 was a deeply emotionally moving experience in a story that I felt was absolutely incredible. It was like a beautiful, fully interactive movie. And so I love when CD Projekt Red focuses on that kind of stuff. And The Witcher 3 had some of those moments, don't get me wrong. What I'm seeing in Cyberpunk with what they've shown is it looks like they've taken what made Witcher 2 special and they have sort of merged it with what made Witcher 3 special. And I have overhyped it in my mind to an absurd degree, and I'm very likely going to be disappointed with the reality of what that game is. But I am so excited to play that game.
Yeah.
I cannot wait.
Yeah, the jury's out. You know, you're never short for a hot take on Cyberpunk with our community, and that's fine. There's a lot of people who aren't going to play it because of some of the choices that the developers are making. I'm definitely not opening up that can of worms on the podcast tonight. Not going to happen. I'm going to let Logan handle that one week when I'm gone.
I mean, I think I've made my opinion on that topic is pretty clear by saying it's my most anticipated game in 2020. So,
but it's definitely. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I'm eager to see kind of what they do with it because I love The Witcher 3 also. But yeah, let me get a little bit into what I've been playing.
Yeah,
just to keep us moving along.
Yeah,
I have played a game that only reason it really came on our radar was like $8 on Amazon. I'd heard some good things. I'm pretty sure, and I don't know if you would know this, but our friend Matt Upshur, I think he was a big fan of the Banner Saga. Have you ever heard him talk about this?
Yeah, I've seen Matt talk. I haven't talked to Upshur in a while, but I do know that I've seen him mention it before.
Okay, because when I bought the game, I'm like, I'm pretty sure he was a big fan of.
I'm a big fan of it.
Okay, well, good, because I'm like, I had heard good things, didn't really know much what I was expecting. Like, looked up something real quick before I bought it, but I got the trilogy for $8 up for the Switch. So I'm like, this is a steal.
That's
you can't even
amazing.
get it for that cheap on iOS.
Dude.
And so I've been playing through the first one, really enjoying it. I've learned I'm really bad at these decision making games where they want you to make like your decisions all matter. I never make the right one. I'm so bad at it. Like I lose people all the time. Like I am horrible at reading the room. And so as I play through it, I'm just like, I'm killing people left and right. Like I'll murder someone when they're like, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "Kill them," and they're like, "Everybody's mad at me now. Morale is at an all-time low." It's so if you're listening and you like those games where your decisions matter, this is one of those games where they give you a lot of leeway of how you can make decisions. But I'm enjoying it. It's kind of interesting art style. Combat's very Fire Emblem. Like that's like one of the like tactical type games. Like played Fire Emblem Three Houses. That was really the first time I really got into that style of game and like stuck with it. So this is kind of scratching that itch a little bit, and so I've kind of been enjoying that. I've found maybe I'm playing. I don't remember if there's difficulty levels, but it hasn't been very difficult at this point. Like I've lost some people through injuries and things like that, but I've not lost any battles. So we'll see how that continues. But been playing the Banner Saga. Been enjoying it. I think I'm probably a little bit over halfway through the first one. This morning, I started Ring Fit Adventure. I'm about to get swole. I'm about to get ripped.
I've heard so many. So I listen to all kinds of gaming podcasts, and one that I listen to, I listen to the Giant Bombcast a lot. Very vulgar. If you're not into that, please don't listen to it if language and stuff bothers you. But if it doesn't, they talk about all kinds of games, and their podcasts are like 3 hours long, and they talk about this game all the time. They've been talking about it. I feel like it's been for decades, and I know the game hasn't been out for that long, but they won't stop talking about it. They love it.
Yeah, I got boy James Roberts in the Facebook group. You know, the perks of being an admin in the TRG auction house is I get first look over anytime somebody wants to post something because I have to approve it. So when because I've had my eye out for it, but you know, you can't find them anywhere. They're impossible to find. On eBay, they're like $240. I mean, it's just stupid.
Yeah.
You can't find them. So when he posted it for like $65, I'm like, I approved it and immediately DM'd him like, dibs, I got it. And then like 3 other people were like, if Adam backs out, I'm in. And so and it's funny, I bought it right after I just told Logan, I'm like, all right, I'm done buying games for a while. My backlog is set for the next 6 months. Till August, I'm good. And then he posts that. I'm like, all right, I'm in. So I picked it up and I played it for the first time this morning. I just started kind of getting back into running, so my body's a little bit tight from that. And man, it had my body burning. My legs were burning because you're basically like squatting in place.
Yeah.
As you play the game, like some of the other movements aren't too bad, but you're like basically air squatting pretty continuously for like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes as you're kind of because that's how your character moves throughout the world.
Oh, I see.
But I'm excited to get into it. I've told Hannah, I'm like, Hannah, this is going to be a great game, I think, for her. I think it'll be just the right workout level if she's willing to get into it. So again, I've only put 1 day into it, but I'm really excited to be able to commit like more time because it took the tutorial, so I didn't get to go as long as I wanted because I didn't get through the setup. But now that I'm like set up, I'm hoping each morning to put, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes into the game, just kind of get the heart pumping. But it's amazing. Like, I can't believe when it first got announced, I'm like, what is this? This is a joke. But now that I've got it and I'm playing it, I'm like, this is kind of legit. I'm like, this is going to be a perfect like winter workout when I can't get outside. And the winters up here in New York are just ridiculous. I'm like, this is what I can do in my house, and it's all good. It's a little bit of a workout. So now, if you're a bodybuilder, of course you wouldn't like this. But for a casual workout guy like myself who loves video games, it's right up my alley.
Yeah, I've heard it's effective at what it does, and it's fun. It's the first fun workout game that I've heard has existed for gamers. Like, it's not, they compared it a lot
to that Wii Fit board, man. You get bouncing on that thing, the downhill luge, or you start boxing or something in the old Wii games, and your arms are getting wore out. It's basically Taibo on the Wii.
Yeah, the Wii Fit, that board thing that my mom had.
Every grandma in the United States had it.
Every mom in the U.S. had
it. Fit on the Wii that their kid bought. But anyways, the other game I've been playing, I just got to hell. I've been playing Doom.
Dude, I just started Doom too. I just now realized that. I forgot to bring that up earlier.
Yeah, and so I got Doom Eternal for like $40 from Best Buy or something like that. Maybe even less than that. It was a stupid deal. I think I got it for $32 actually.
You're continuing your promise to yourself to not buy more games. I see.
Well, it was the combination of buying Doom Eternal and buying Dragon Quest XI that kind of told me I've got to stop until Last of Us goes to, like, I've got I'm mapped out is basically what I'm saying.
Yep.
So I've got Doom. Jesse Knopp, he hooks me up with a copy of Doom. So I'm playing that so that I can play Doom Eternal and be ready for our episode. I think we're doing at the end of June. And so I've really been enjoying it. I mean, it's a fun shooter. You got to stay on the move. And, I'm just trying to special finish everybody and whatnot. I don't play it with Hannah around because it's kind of ridiculously gory. I kind of play it when I'm by myself, but been enjoying that. But yeah, that's enough. We've talked plenty long about what we've been playing. Clay, what have you been reading? Anything either in God's Word or in a book that's kind of been jumping out at you that you want to share with us?
Yeah. So I'll try to keep this brief, but it's actually it's a Bible passage that means a lot to me right now. Two things. One, my wife's grandfather was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease a few years ago, and he shared with the family after he was diagnosed with that Luke 12. Verses 25 through 26. It's very common, but for those who may not know it or just want a reminder, it just simply says, "Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest?" And he kind of shared the whole chapter because he's an incredible man, a very godly man. And I bring that up now because my wife was recently, within the last few months, diagnosed with stage 1. Praise God, breast cancer. And she's 28 years old. It doesn't run in her family. She's perfectly healthy person. Anybody that knows my wife knows that she, like, you look at her, she looks like a healthy human. And going through that has been really hard. And anything from going through the experience of shaving your wife's head it's kind of a hard thing to describe in terms of the way that it feels, mostly for her, like just the helpless empathy that you feel towards this person that you would do anything for, that you love unconditionally. And so this verse to me, for the last really month, has been almost like a meditation. If I start to sort of fall back into just complete worry, especially when my wife going through chemotherapy is compromised, and we've got COVID happening, and, everything happening in the world right now. It's just chaos.
Yeah.
And so for me, that Bible verse has been, it's been a very powerful meditation in my life in the last little bit. So that right when I saw that was on the list of things to talk about, I was like, well, I know what I'm writing. Like, I know what I'm sharing. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, the Word of God, I think we've talked about on the podcast, but if you talk with me long enough, I'm going to get to the statement of, I don't know how the world goes through hard times without God and His Word. Like, I just don't know. I can't comprehend it. I'm thankful that for most of my life, I've always been in a Christian family, but I just don't understand when you don't have a hope, you don't have a joy that's found in God and Christ. If you don't have the promises of God's Word to cling on to, I don't know how people do it. Everything else is so empty. people let you down, things let you down, jobs let you down, your health lets you down. Man, God's word is so faithful. So I'm glad that God's word is being a balm to you guys as you wade these waters. And I know we talked about in the pre-show, but our family is praying for you guys. Again, I know Caitlin, and she's a rock star. I got to work with her for a while there when I was back in Michigan. So care for her, love you guys, and definitely be praying. TRG community, be praying for them. Be praying for Caitlin and Clay as they've got, I think he said 4 more rounds of chemo for her. So we'll definitely be praying for you guys. What I've been reading a book called The Art of Neighboring. So being new in New York up here, really trying to get to know my neighbors. And this book came on my radar a little while ago. And so I was looking at maybe a new group study or book study I might be doing with our people at church. And I said, I'm going to read this book while we did a little stealth trip back to Michigan this last week to let everybody meet baby Brock and see him. So it was a lot slower trip than usual. Usually we're bouncing all over the place, seeing friends, seeing family. This one was a little bit slower. So I'm like, I need to read this book so I can decide if I want to do like a book study on it. And I didn't completely finish it, but I got like maybe a chapter or 2 left. But it's a really interesting book. Basically, the premise of the book is, yes, the great commandment. We need to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, but then also to love our neighbor as ourselves. And it's true, and it's convenient sometimes for us to remember, yes, when I go on a mission trip international and I'm serving that poor people group or this or that, I'm sharing the gospel, they are my neighbor and I'm loving them more. I'm loving someone across town, or I'm going to do disaster relief. Yes, that is very much loving our neighbor. But at the same time, it doesn't take away from the imperative and the necessity of us to love our literal neighbor, not just our metaphorical one or their figurative neighbor that is out in the world. Everyone is our neighbor to some degree according to Scripture. But the book's premise is, but God has placed us where we live for a reason, and He wants us to love our literal neighbors. And so it's really hit me like, a box of rocks. I mean, it's like it's been weighing on me. Like I was thinking about the other day in this group that I might be leading, and I don't want to say it's a burden, but like it's heavy. Like I want to be a good neighbor. I want to love my neighbors. And one of the other main premises of the book, we don't love our neighbor with the motive of, I just want to win them to Christ. Now, of course, we hope that might happen. But the reason we love our neighbor is because we want to be obedient followers of Christ. God calls us to love others and to love our neighbor. And that is not contingent upon if they come to know Him or not. We're called to love them. And that means it's going to be messy. It's going to be time consuming. It's going to get complicated. It's going to be inconvenient, but it's also going to be joyful. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be, you're going to have a closeness with your neighbors. And so it's rocked my world, but I'm thankful to say, even in the midst of this coronavirus stuff, we've got to meet 3 or 4 of our neighbors just as we've been home, as we've been outside as a family, just kick back. Everyone's been home, so everybody's been working on the yard. We've got to meet 2 or 3 of our neighbors that we haven't known yet, got to be introduced to them. A couple that we're a little bit closer to, and it's hard to say we're still not really that close, but we're building relationships with them. One of them, we talked to them the other day, they're going to watch our online service at our church. So it's been cool seeing God give us, after reading this book, I'm seeing some fruit of some of the work, but we definitely got a lot of work left to do, but definitely a really good challenge of, some people, they live out in the sticks, their neighbor is 5 miles away or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you live in a neighborhood or a city, like I have multiple neighbors around me that I can be getting to know. And so it's just been a really good challenge of, Adam, are you just loving the people that are across town or that are coming to church? Or are you really investing in your neighbors that live right next door? And we're finding that as we interact with them, they want to share their life. If you give the people a platform, one of our neighbors is sharing. We're just talking over the fence about our new baby, and she's opening up about all kinds of things in her lives. And I love the conversation to be like, wow, like what trust they just had in us, just taking the moment to listen. And so if you're interested in growing and being a better neighbor, some of those things, I'd say check out this book. It's really interesting, called, again, The Art of Neighboring. So yeah, that's what I've been reading.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's an interesting read, for sure. I mean, just thinking of outreach and encouraging and loving others. But all right, but we are here. I mean, Clay is here. Yes, to talk about video games, to hang out, to talk about things he's reading, to catch up. But the big reason that we brought Clay on is, again, back in September of 2018, Clay came on. He was talking about a board game that him and mentor friend that from college, Adam Hill, they created a board game. And at that point, he really couldn't tell us much. I mean, we talked about the development process, but we basically left with Clay saying, well, they told me I can't talk about it. They told me I can't talk about it. They told me, and I'm like, you're killing me, dog.
Sorry,
and so
it's true, though.
Now we're on the other end of that, and we're going to pull the veil back and get the inside story.
Sure.
I'm assuming he can tell us stuff now.
Oh, yeah, I can tell you everything at this point.
But I'm really excited just to hear everything. So, Clay, let's just start off with, how does it feel? I mean, you are a published board game creator. Is that crazy to think about?
Yeah, it's surreal. It's definitely surreal. I'm answering questions on Board Game Geek forums from people that I've never met before, people I've never talked to before. There's a guy that I know that I've answered a couple questions for that lives in another country, and there's somebody in another country that spent money on a thing that my name is on the box, and they're playing it during their game nights. And that is, it's a surreal thing, because it was never, I think we talked about this last time. This was never like a dream of mine. Like it's not like I grew up wanting to be a board game designer. And it's not my full-time job, like I work a different full-time job just like anybody else, and then kind of did this on the side and continuing to do it on the side. We're still making other games. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird to actually have a game in a box with art that is going to be on store shelves with my name on it. It's surreal. It is.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. I mean, it's so amazing. It's incredible. I can't even describe how incredible it is, but it's very surreal.
I love being. I mean, Hannah and I often tell our friends this. We want to be hype people. Like, we want to be the people that people love telling good news to, because we get excited with them. And so I've been living like vicariously through you guys. Like, Adam's not on the podcast, but we could add Adam was like a mentor of mine in college. He was a professor, but we met in a group of 4 or 5. We called ourselves the Dragons. I mean, it was just he was just a dear friend. And so for you guys to get to do this, I mean, I've been rooting you guys on. I will probably never spend the amount of money that I spent on this deluxe edition board game, but I'm like, I've got to do it. These are my boys. I've got to support them. I don't care what the cost is. I'm like, I've got to get this game and support them. And so I'm like so jacked for you guys, so excited. I mean, every time I do anything with the game, I'm tweeting about it. I'm talking about it. So I'm super excited for you guys, and just to kind of see again we're really still in the beginning. You guys have been in it, but your game's just about to launch. So who knows what's really going to happen, but it's been excited to get to follow you guys. But let's talk about that journey some. So last time we talked about it, I think at that point it was still under the title of Apocalypse. So the game started as calling Apocalypse, but then you got picked up by this publisher, and it's called Godspeed. What did that conversation look like when you're working with a publisher and they're saying, "Hey, we love your game, the way it works, the design, but they want to start tinkering with your baby"? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, so we had a couple of advantages. One of those advantages is that some of our friends are in the industry. That didn't really help us much in terms of connections. Like, you still have to make your own way, but they kind of helped us out with understanding expectations and what to expect moving forward when it came to working with publishers. And so we knew that there was always a chance that this weird sort of off-the-wall theme that we had may not work. And for those listening, the old theme was that for all intents and purposes, the world had come to an end for humanity, and the alpacas, the great alpacas, rose in dominance. And the theme of the game is that you were controlling an alpacan tribe, and the alpacan tribe was basically your representation of your dominance on the planet Earth. And so each of you were vying for becoming the most dominant tribe on the planet, but you were alpacas, not humans. So we always knew that that theme was stupid. But it was stupid on purpose. We leaned into it, like some of the, a lot of the cards used to have flavor text on them. And they were things like in the military deck, you had acid spit. Like, you know what I mean? Like we were trying to come up with weaponized versions of how alpacas could fight each other and that kind of thing. Well, when the publisher got a hold of it, they actually didn't hate the theme. They were sort of split. The company that we work with, Pandasaurus Games, they're a husband and wife duo, and the husband always kind of liked the theme, and the wife she wasn't as crazy about it. Molly wasn't as wild about it. Nathan liked it. Well, there's a big step in the board game creation process. There's a few big steps. The first step is basically if you're going to make a game, that's you designing something, right? So you're going to take a concept in your brain and you're going to put it on paper and you're going to design what that game looks like. How do you play it? What mechanisms do you use? Once you get to the end of that process, you either self-publish or you work with a publisher, and from there you go into what we refer to as the developmental process, where you develop your game. You're done making it. You know what a turn looks like in your game. You know how long it takes to play, but now you're going to iron it out. And the way that you do that is with playtesting. So the most horrifying moment of this entire process, in my opinion, was when we basically had random people from around the world playtest our game when it was just a prototype. And they don't know us. They have no reason to be nice to us. Their entire job is to give us honest feedback, and it was terrifying. Well, the general consensus from these playtesters was, we really like playing this game. It's a lot of fun. The response was overwhelmingly positive, which was great.
There's a billion pieces, but we really enjoy playing it.
Yes, it's long. It's a big game. It's heavy. Adam to tell you, it's heavy. But I'm going to play Ring Fit with my Godspeed box just to have some more resistance. Exactly. Hey, it's 8 pounds, baby. We packed a lot in there. But what was happening is playtesters were saying, we love the game, we don't get the theme. We love the game, we don't get the theme. And then there's some other things that happened that were also going against us on the theming, which are business oriented, which are kind of boring to talk about. So we don't even need to open that can of worms. Essentially what was happening is the publisher realized that we had a wonderful machine, but nobody liked the vehicle that was carrying it, right? So the cogs that were spinning, the oil that was in there, that machine was humming along beautifully for people. They really got it. They liked it. They enjoyed their time with it, but they were ultimately confused about how the game was asking to engage those mechanisms within this thematic shell. And so the publisher, huge shout out to Pandasaurus. I doubt they listen to this, but if they do, I love them to death. They sat me and Adam down on FaceTime and they were like, here's the brass tacks. People don't want a goofy theme in a $60 box. If you think about it from this perspective, Adam, if you think of a game called the Alpacalypse, the world is ending and alpacas have taken over, your mind is probably automatically going to move in the direction of exploding kittens, of the unicorn game, Uno, like all these little tiny $15 to $20 boxes at Target. That's where your mind goes. People that spend $60 to $115 on a board game, they're not looking for something goofy. They're looking for something serious. Serious doesn't necessarily mean melancholy, but it does mean if I'm spending $100 on a board game, I'm taking this hobby seriously.
I want the world ending like Pandemic. I need to know that I have to solve the crisis.
Yeah, they want there to be real, relatable stakes there. And so we understood that at the end of the day, if you want to get into board game design, you have to kind of make a decision. And that decision is fundamental to the kind of thing that you end up creating. And there's not a wrong decision in this tree here. But the decision is, do you want to make a game or do you want to make a product? And at the end of the day, anybody sitting at home right now listening to this, You can make a game. I promise. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of heartache, but you can make a game. Anybody can that has a creative bone in their body can do this. Not everybody can make a product. Anybody can take a deck of cards and tell people, I have a set of rules to engage with this deck of cards. I made a game out of it. But you've got to, what does the art look like? How many cards are there? How much does it cost to get those cards? Could I just do it at home with my own deck of cards? Why do I need your deck of cards? Getting a community around the world to ask them to give you money for your game, that's selling a product. And what Adam and I ultimately wanted to do was make a product. So working with the publisher, the playtesters, all that good stuff, we made a product decision that our game is ultimately the same. We're not changing mechanisms. We're not sacrificing our vision for what we want players to experience while playing it. We're simply going to alter the way that we engage with an audience that is more fitting to the price point that we're going to be putting on this thing, so that the product itself feels more satisfying to purchase from a psychological standpoint. It makes a lot more sense where the weight of the theme and the weight of the game match a little bit more effectively.
Well, the next question is, how much more do I have to give on Kickstarter for me to get one of those limited edition playtest copies? Before I die, before Christ comes back, I already said on Twitter, me, you, and Adam are gonna have to play together, so you guys can wreck face, and crush me. But I want to play the Apocalypse version if we play again. I want the drawn-on pictures. I want the handmade card. I want to go back to the OG version. That's what I want to know. How many of those are floating around this world?
So I can tell you the most heartbreaking part about that whole thing is that we don't have any left. We gave them basically to the publisher, who then used it to do a bunch of playtesting prior to the developmental phase with a bunch of external stuff to get opinions from.
You didn't get to keep even one yourself?
No. Not only did we not keep one, Adam actually had to make an extra one after we sent the 3 that we already had, and we still didn't get that one back. It's actually pretty common in the industry. Now, that being said, we have all the original files, so we can always make a new one. But in terms of the faded pieces and the crinkled cards that went through 150 playtests, those are sadly lost to us. Maybe the publisher has it hidden away in some cabinet somewhere, but I doubt.
It's like Indiana Jones style. He's got him with the Holy Grail or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the Ark of the Covenant, I guess.
Yeah,
but
it breaks our heart, but I mean, at least at this point, we don't have a copy. But that's honestly, it's very normal. Most people don't get to.
But the nostalgia to be able to look back. And again, I know you guys already have all that. It's already there. You've got it mentally. Yeah. But that would be a cool kind of keepsake if you could ever figure out a way of getting one of those back. Because again, you may make a lot of games again, but do you ever get to the product level again? But to have that one would have been special. But the game you have is awesome, Godspeed. Why don't you give us the pitch? Tell us about the game, the story, maybe the style of game it is. Last time we had you on, you were talking about all these different styles of game that had me that didn't make much sense to me. But now that I've played your game, I at least know what a worker placement game is.
Yeah. So the elevator pitch for Godspeed, thematically, the tagline is "The space race was a lie." Effectively, while there was a space race of sorts that was happening back in this sort of 60s Cold War era, it wasn't what you thought. The moon landing and all that stuff, it wasn't faked. It happened, but the real race was actually happening on this other planet that we found through this wormhole. And all of these countries around the world were basically vying for dominance on this new planet, tapping into its resources, establishing their own infrastructure, figuring out how to, implement their own commerce when it comes to economies and things like that, right? So the theme of the game is you controlling a particular country and playing against other players to, for all intents and purposes, establish your nation as the most dominant nation on this secondary Earth, basically, is what it is. And then on that planet, we discover ancient alien technology with these weird crystals that we can't quite figure out exactly what they are, called Lithonium. You can make up any name you want for the sake of theme, by the way, and we went with Lithonium. And you're basically all vying to tap into the planet the most effective way that you can. Now, in terms of how you do that, Adam mentioned worker placement. My wife, for the longest time, thought I was saying work replacement. It's worker placement. So the way that works is, think of all of you will have your own specialized pieces, and they've got names. So in the case of the final product, things like your ambassador is the leader of your country, and you've got your captain, and you've got your engineer, and so on and so forth. And each of them have their own specialized thing that they can do in the form of an action. And what worker placement means is, in order to take that action, I have to take my worker. So if we take my captain, I can send him to a specific action on the game board, and then I resolve whatever that action is. But what makes it unique, most worker placement games do this, is if Adam and I were playing a game together and I set my captain to that space, Adam can't go there anymore because I've blocked him from going there. And so it can become it's a pretty mean game when it comes to two players. It's a knife fight for sure. It's very crowded. There's not a lot of room to breathe, which I'm sure Adam experienced. Yeah. But you've got that. Then you also have something that the industry would call blind bidding, which is really just a fancy term for saying you're spending some form of currency to get something from a marketplace. What makes Godspeed unique, though, and this is probably something that Adam had never experienced in a game, because what we really created here is something that the industry really hasn't seen. This is the one thing that kind of makes Godspeed special, I think, because even players that are playing it now keep saying on the forums, without us asking them to, that bidding feels refreshing in Godspeed. And the reason why is because your workers are what you use to bid. So you have to figure out when to send your workers to bid in the market to get cool stuff, and when to send them to the action spaces to do cool stuff. And so effectively what you're ultimately doing is getting points for doing things with your workers, and you're moving up on these tracks, and you're building cards by collecting resources, and you're building little buildings, and you eventually get these really cool things called relic powers that kind of have a game-breaking rule associated with them. So it's a pretty involved game. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of pieces. It's a heavier game. If you're not used to board games, if the most exposure you've had to board games is, let's say, Catan, our game is significantly more complicated than that. But if you are used to board games, if you've maybe played, we could say like Carcassonne is maybe a little bit more complex than Catan in some ways. Or maybe Pandemic in some senses. I'm trying my best to bridge the gaps and probably doing a terrible job. But the game is heavier, for sure. Yeah. And so it's a worker placement, blind bidding, resource management game, effectively.
Yeah, it reminded me of the scoring, at least, because you kind of have a little bit of an idea what's going on in the game, but you really don't really know until the end. It kind of reminded me of like a game you recommended to me last time was Queen Domino.
Yeah.
Where, okay, everything's been built out. The game's over. Now we tally up everyone's points and see where you are. And so it's like, I might have an idea, but really you just don't know because you're so focused on kind of what you're doing that when you get to the end, you're like, okay, I had a decent idea. Like we played it the other night. So the first time we played it, first of all, it took us 30 minutes just to get set up because I'm like reading the booklet. I'm trying to figure out what cards go where. It's just Hannah and I. It's like 9 o'clock at night, so we're slap happy.
Oh man,
we're laughing. She's just like laughing every time I say something and giving me a hard time.
Yeah.
So we got about 5 rounds in after 3 hours of reading and studying. I watched a couple playthroughs, just trying to get a grasp of what was going on. So don't let that divert you, dear listeners. Once you get into it, it starts flowing. Then we had some friends over a few nights ago. We broke social distancing. I know we're horrible people. We just couldn't take. I'm like, I've got this board game and I've got to play it with my friends. So we had them over, and we taught them it. And that was a 4-player game. It was very different. The first time going 2-player and then jumping up to 4.
Yeah.
The first time we were also trying to learn it, so Hannah knew what I was trying to do half the time, so she was cutthroat. I'm like, we're learning the game. Stop putting your piece and blocking me just because you know I'm doing that. Like, normally you wouldn't know that. You're just being mean. So we had to work through that, but we didn't finish the game, so we don't really know who won. But we played it the other night, and I mean, I had a blast. But we'll get into that. We'll get into more of some of the nuts and bolts here in a second. But so you've got Godspeed. You've changed it all. It's been remade. You guys go to Kickstarter. So I remember when you guys went to Kickstarter. I mean, it kind of popped up on my radar of like, hey, this is about to go live. We've been working on this, and again, I've been following you guys for a while. And you guys had a goal of 30,000, and so it goes live. You're hoping to get 30,000 to get your game made. Tell us about that journey because it got wild real fast.
Yeah, so the most important thing to understand about this part of the story is that Adam and I were about as clueless as you could possibly be in terms of expectation. And what I mean by that is in the industry, in the hobbyist board gaming industry, name means a lot. Reputation, it drives success. It really does. So as an example, a lot of people listening to this probably don't know the name Isaac Childress. But if Isaac Childress came out with a game on Kickstarter tomorrow that nobody had ever heard of, it would make millions of dollars just because it was made by Isaac Childress. He's just that kind of a name. Well, nobody knows me and Adam because we've never made anything. So going into Kickstarter, you have no idea if your game is even really going to get funded because people are taking a chance on buying a game made by somebody that's never made a game before, right? So going into this, Adam and I, when I say we had no expectation, I mean we had none because we've never done this and we know that the industry is built on reputation most of the time. So the first day it launches, the night before, I barely sleep because I'm thinking we're gonna be the first game that Pandasaurus comes out with on Kickstarter, and they're not gonna make enough money to make the game. Like, it's not going to fund. People are going to hate it. People are going to be like, what are these guys doing? We're going to be laughed out of the building. What am I thinking? This is never going to happen. I can't believe we've even made it this far. People are clueless. And then I wake up and our game funds all $30,000 that it needs in about an hour and a half.
Yeah,
and
it was crazy.
My phone explodes with just texts and Facebook messages and all it, just my friends and family that are so happy for me. And Adam and I are going back and forth over text and just crying. Like we're elated, right?
Yeah.
And all I'm thinking is it got funded. That's awesome. We have a game. And even if that's all it did, even if we needed 30,000, it raised $30,500 and we sold it to 400 people and then it was over and nothing else ever happened. I'm on cloud nine. I've got a game. Well, when I went to bed that night, the grand total was $100,000.
Crazy.
Oh my gosh, crazy. Absolutely just mind-boggling that our game made $100,000 and it was roughly about a 16-hour period. And I can't even really explain it.
I was seeing people on Twitter tweeting about like different influencers in just the video game industry and that video game media culture, entertainment culture. Like, I don't want to say like, not necessarily big names, but again, some random person that I was following for some reason, they were tweeting about, oh, I just backed Kickstarter. And I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah,
like, it was so cool just being there watching it with you guys and kind of for you guys of like, again, just I get proud of my friends. So like just being proud for you guys being like, wow, this is awesome. Like all that hard work is paying off for them. And not just like you said, you didn't just hit the bare minimum. Like it really blew up in a really cool way. And so, I mean, I was checking it after even I did my backing. I kept going back just to see where you guys were, I'd see different people backing you guys again on Twitter and Facebook. And it was a crazy wild for me just as a friend watching it for you guys. I can't even imagine what he kept saying Adam. Again, dear listeners, he's not talking about me. He's talking about Adam Hill. The creator is Adam Hill. Way cooler, way smarter guy than I am.
Both of us, really. Way cooler and smarter
than both of us.
Yeah.
But that's who he's talking about, Adam. So I mean, it was really cool watching it from afar, just kind of what was happening for you guys. And
yeah, I mean, seeing the game go from the night before, my brain wondering whether or not it would even fund because you just don't know. And then at the end, the final tally on Kickstarter was $239,900
wow.
something dollars. So just under $240,000. I mean, there's no words to describe what it's like to make a thing that, in the eyes of a group of people, is worth $250,000. It's so. Well, it's my.
I haven't made many things that are worth a quarter in my life. This podcast is helping Logan with this podcast is probably one of the highlights. Outside of my son that I was actively involved in creating, there's not been many things that I have created that have been with. I'm not the creative type. And so to create anything that people want is an anomaly. I made a birthday card for my nephew a few weeks ago, and my wife still shames me today for it. And so I'm not that guy. So it just blows my mind to see creative minds come together and make stuff because it's so outside of my realm of ability. But it's cool seeing that for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it was it took us. It was a 2+ year journey. I mean, it was a lot of hard work, a lot of heartbreak. I mean, 40-hour weeks working on this game on top of working a normal job. 8-9 months straight where Adam and I wanted to just kill each other sometimes, driving each other crazy. To people playtesting it, to coming up with new ideas and having them not work and needing to scrap things and constantly be adjusting. I mean, we made rules changes. You're talking, just months before the game came out. You're never done making your thing, right? I mean, Adam and I want to work on a solo mode for the community because people are asking for a solo mode for it. For those of you listening, solo board gaming is a thing, and it's amazing. And like
just give me the app. I already gave you the pitch. We got some developers in our community. We need to get somebody. We got to get them connected with Pandasaurus. I need this on my phone because then I don't have to set this board up whenever I want to play it by myself.
It's a lot.
Give me this. I need the solo mode on my phone or iPad. That's what I'm calling for. I'm going to start everybody's got their change stuff going on right now for this, open that. I'm creating a petition to get me Godspeed on my iOS.
If you get enough signatures to make more Godspeed, I'm going to be the last person to argue with you, believe me. But you're never done making the thing that you made, right? Like we're still designing things for it right now, even after it exists.
That's cool.
So, yeah, man, it's wild. It's crazy.
Well, I've already mentioned I've got my Kickstarter copy. I've got to play it a couple times. And I can say this isn't me just blowing air, up your whatever, but it is by far the nicest game that I've ever owned. Again, I'm blessed. I'm thankful that I was able to get I don't know if it's like deluxe Kickstarter edition, because I don't know. Can you order the deluxe edition still, or is that only Kickstarter exclusive?
Yeah, it's Kickstarter exclusive, but for people listening, it's not gameplay oriented. If for a lack of better, we're video gamers on this podcast and in this group, right? So it's not like a DLC chapter with gameplay. It's more like a skin I
got the HD remaster.
Yeah, it's better components in the terms of like they're 4 heat transfer plastic pieces for their resources and stuff like that.
They are legit.
And
they are legit. They're so nice. They're almost too nice because half the time I'm trying to pick up my workers and I'm dropping them all over the place. They're like token sizes. We're throwing them all over the place. I'm like, literally, they're almost slippery sometimes. I'm like, sorry, pick that up for me. But it's such a nice game. The board is beautiful.
It is. Oh my gosh.
The amount of, when they initially kickstarted the game, I think there was 6 countries that you could choose from.
5, yeah. And then they
doubled. There's now 10 countries that you can have. The milestone pieces are really nice, like plastic pieces. It's a very, well-made game. And I'm not a connoisseur like Clay or Adam, but I've got a shelf full of games, and I like to play them. This game, I dabble. Yeah, I dabble. I'm growing. Ever since we last talked on the podcast, again, I've gotten the Queen Domino. I dabble. I don't go quite as hard as you guys, but I'm getting there. If I had you guys around, I would be there.
Yeah,
if I lived in Michigan still, you guys would have already had me sucked all the way in.
Oh,
it's just about, and just at the stage with kids, it's a whole nother battle trying to.
Absolutely.
Do I hire a babysitter and pay them $40 just so I can play a board game?
Yeah.
It's a tough choice to make. But I'm there. I'm there sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. I've been there. But yeah, I've got my copy and it's awesome. I can't wait to play more. Actually, the wife dropped some stuff off to us today, to me and my wife, and I was like, oh, we got to find that time to have you guys over to play Godspeed again. And she's like, have you talked to your buddy yet about any tips yet? I'm like, no, I haven't. I'm talking to him tonight. So, Clay, I need some insider info here because, first of all, what would be in general? I don't want to tell you what my score was yet until I hear what you say.
Sure.
If you said that was a solid game for someone to win with a score, what would that score be usually?
Well, it's all going to depend, first of all, on player count. If you have a lower player count, you're going to have much higher scores because there are pretty much the same amount of points on the board, but with fewer distribution points, right? Okay. So if I'm in a 2-player game, the 4 tracks alone, that's a potential 42 points. 32 points for the first player, right? For if somebody won all 4 tracks, it's 32 points.
Let's say 4 players.
So 4-player game, I would say if you win, I would say that you probably had a dominant game if you scored in the mid-30s. I'm guessing mid-30s. If you hit 40 in a 4-player game, that's
okay. I'm feeling pretty good about myself right now.
Now
you got me feeling pretty good.
It also depends. It also depends on what the curve is. So here's the thing: there's a lot of points that can be missed in the game if everybody playing it misses out. Like there are some games that are played that there's a milestone that doesn't get claimed, and that's 4 points. There are some games where everybody that's playing the game ignores the lunar seasons. That's 9 points, right? What I can tell you is if everybody's in the 40s or something like that, maybe they had a bunch. It depends. Are you playing with victory decree cards in the market? So there's a lot of variables here, right? But I can tell you that mid-30s to 40 in a 4-player game, to me, sounds high. Adam Hill might be listening to this, and he might be throwing his phone at the wall because he knows data better than I do. So he's probably like, Clay, you're stupid. 70's a good score. But based on what I remember, 35 to 40, you probably had a pretty good game. And if they're a 4-player game.
Okay.
What was your score?
I had a 38. So I'm feeling good.
Okay, who was the next closest person to you, though?
We had 38, 28?
Yeah, dude.
38, 28, 18, and like 22 or something like that.
No, let's just stop the presses. If you win Godspeed by double digits, you are. Now, I definitely knew the rules and what was going on way better than everyone else. Okay.
So that goes a long way. But I was trying to keep it fair. I was like, hey guys, don't forget about these lunar seasons.
Yeah.
Like I only had one milestone. Other people had multiple ones. But I think the kicker for me was I had my eye on the track.
Yep.
Everybody was caught up with the bells and whistles. I had my eye on the track. It's like if you ever watch Parks and Rec and they talk about cones and Dunshire, there's an episode towards the end of the season where he's like, you forget the essence of the game. It's all about the cones. It's all Godspeed. I came back to say it's all about the track.
It is a race. If you want to view it that way, it's a race to the top. You asked me in the beginning what would be my insider tip, pro tip on how to win Godspeed. Godspeed is won and lost in the tracks. If you play Godspeed, the tracks they need to be the most important thing in your life, and here's why. The most points in the game exist on the tracks, and the biggest delta creators exist on the tracks. And what I mean by that, if I'm first place and you're second place, I have 8 points and you have 4 points. I've doubled your points. The second you pass me on that track, now I'm second and you're first. I'm now at 4 and you're now at 8. That delta, that switch there is a huge swing. I'm losing 4 and you're gaining 4. So that's massive when it comes to affecting the overall score, in that even if I move you out of first and I go in, or if I move you out of second and I go in to second and you're in third now, and you lose 2 points and I gain 2 points, that could be the difference in us winning. However, Lunar Seasons, that's just a raw gain of 3 points. That's not going to have an impact on anybody but you. First of all, there's no swing there. Same with the milestones. Yeah, when I take a milestone, nobody else can have it. So it's 4 points that I have that nobody else has. But by me taking that milestone, I'm not forcing any other players at the table to technically lose points. I'm just preventing them from gaining them. Whereas on the tracks, it's both benefiting you and negatively impacting your opponent. So the tracks are key. I'll tell you this. If there's a game where somebody scores the highest on a majority of the tracks and they don't win, that would be an anomaly. Once players realize that, then the tracks become this battleground and it becomes a crapshoot because nobody's dominating on all of them, right? Yeah. Because players realize, oh, I really need to pay attention to those tracks. And then what's happening is the track race is super tight, and now the milestones in the Lunar Seasons are these big swing turns where I got that milestone. All right, and I locked in on second place on 2 of them, and I got first on 2 of them. I think I'm going to lock this victory in. So that would be my professional tip. If you ignore the tracks, you're going to ignore a victory.
See, for you guys who haven't played the game yet, this is going to all sound like just gibberish to you guys. Yeah, but if you play the game, it's going to be so good because it does make a difference. Like, again, and I'm thankful to, I'm not trying to act like I'm like some expert, but I picked that up. And so I was noticing, my relic that I got, and again, this will mean something to you and not really to anyone else who is listening, but there's a relic a power relic that you can get where you can trade in 2 of any resource.
Move up on
and you can move up on the prestige track. So that was the swing for me. I barely had any resources at the end left because I was nickel and diamond every round, and I'm like, I got this one for a reason. I've got to use it. I didn't pick it not to use it. Yep. And so that gave me the swing. Like the last round, a guy, he tied me and he ended up being in second place. He's like, oh, I think I've got, I've at least tied you. And I'm like, no. Bam, one, I paid 2 and got that one. And then I jumped in another one and jumped in the first place in the last round. So it was a huge swing for me at the end. But again, people were paying attention to the track, but they definitely weren't giving it the emphasis. They were focused on completing development cards and Lunar Seasons. And again, they all play into the track, but not like if you're really focusing on it, it can be, like you said, it's a race. You want to do well there.
Yeah. So. You got one of my favorite relic powers. You have to have a lot of resources to make it work. And resources can be tight if you didn't. I'm guessing you built all of your buildings.
Actually, I didn't.
Wow.
That was what was really a challenge.
I'm impressed.
I only had 3. Hannah finished all of them, but she went with, she had the relic where it takes 1 less resource to build stuff.
Okay.
So she was saving there, and I'm like, but I went with that one. But the big thing is I started, instead of completing development cards to get things, I was like, I can just go to the Trader Depot and I can just get any 2 resources that's a prestige point anywhere I want. And that's going to cost me less than it would to complete a development card. Yeah. And to potentially go up in either a track that's locked in or one that I don't need so much.
Yeah. So once you have your relic and you're moving up automatically on one of them, then you do, even if you just do it once at the end of a turn, like you said, like a completed card without having to get the card and then take another action to complete it. It's a wonderful power. It's awesome. Yeah.
So, well, cool. I feel like, I'm like, all right. I definitely don't feel like I embarrassed myself talking to the creator. You're are you familiar with Parks and Recreation and them talking about?
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to remember. What do they call the guy that created it? The architect. Hannah's in the background. She's in the crowd. She's the architect. So I didn't want to embarrass myself when I'm talking to the architect of Godspeed and being talking about crappy strategy.
I can tell you mid 30s to 40, I think, in a 4-player. That sounds really high to me because it means somebody, and that's what I figured happened. Somebody probably did really bad, and no offense to that person, but an 18 is a pretty low score. And then to lose by 10, I mean, in second place, the delta between first and second, 10 points, that's a good chunk of points in Godspeed, man. It really is, because the scores are never that high. I mean, the highest score that really ever happens is in 2-player games, and you're talking like in the 50s if things are going real well for somebody. And so 38 in a 4-player game, that's nothing to sneeze at, man. That's what, I mean, right up front, I said mid-30s sounded really high to me. So. Yeah.
Well, let me finish with this one. It's not some huge question, but so how many copies of Godspeed do you have? Is your like closet packed with them, or you're like anytime someone comes over, it's like your parting gift, like, hey, I made a board game. Hey, I made a board game. Go try this out. Like, or have you been pretty chill with it?
So I could tell you when it comes to signing contracts with publishers, because we signed a contract and we make royalties basically on sales and stuff. Most contracts through publishers give you a certain amount of copies of the game. The standard amount from what we heard was 6, and that's what we got. So, we Adam and I each got 6 copies of the game with 6 of the bags of the upgraded goodies and all that kind of stuff.
Those coins. I didn't even talk about the coins.
Oh, yeah, the metal coins.
Metal coins.
Yeah, I know. They're so cool. The metal coins are great. They're so clinky, and they're thin but sturdy. I love them. I think they're great. So, I'm giving a copy to my mom, my dad, keeping a copy for myself. And then I gave a couple copies away to a couple friends that have helped me with a couple of things with the project over the years. And then going to give a copy to my best friend who I've been best friends with him since like 5th grade, who also bought the deluxe edition. He just wants a sealed copy of the game.
Nice.
So he's going to get
Did you
that.
autograph it?
I'm going to. He wants me and Adam to autograph it.
Next time I'm coming up to Rochester, I'm bringing mine. I'm going to get you guys to autograph it.
That's totally cool. I'd love to. It's going to be weird to autograph boxes for my friends because it's like, I'm not a big deal, right?
Let us roll with you. You're a big deal to us. That's all that matters. You don't got to be a big deal to everybody else. You're a big deal to us, though. And that's exciting.
That. And honestly, thank you for buying it. Really, and I know I've gotten a couple comments from people in the group that have kind of supported from a distance, saying that it was really cool and saying congratulations to me. So anybody listening to this that's reached out to me on Facebook and congratulated me, thank you for your kind words of encouragement. And
we may only have 20 people that listen to this podcast episode, but I'm going to assume that they're all in with us. So they're going to be like, yeah, I bought it. But Logan's going to be like, we got to stop talking about this game, because there's like only the people who bought it who knew what we were talking about were the ones that listened. I'm like, hey, that's okay for me. I had a good time cutting it up.
Sorry we talked for half an hour about a game you don't know how to play and have never.
Hey, but if we didn't wet your whistle enough with this, if you're not tempted to get out, if you like board games, this is like early reco. Of course, we've got to go there. If you like board games at all, and you want to support a brother in the faith, a brother in TRG, you have to at least go check it out. Go look at the board, watch a playthrough on YouTube. I don't have no fancy camera, so I can't set something up, or I would do that myself. Soon you'll be able to buy the iOS version when I get my petition done, so you can potentially support them there. That's not true. Don't think that that's real.
Yeah, that's not. I'm sure.
Go check it out there. So give us the link. Where can they buy it? I know you guys are about to go live. You're still in like the pre-order phase, technically. When do you guys launch?
Yeah, the actual game will release in June, I believe, is the date right now. I think that this disclaimer comes with everything in the world at the moment, but COVID is likely going to impact things like shipping and stuff like that. But it's all done through Pandasaurus Games. It's spelled exactly as it sounds, Pandasaurus Games. .com. If you go there and you go to their games section, Godspeed is listed right there, and it's listed for pre-order. You can also, if you want to check out the game in more detail in terms of like what it looks like, how it plays, there's a couple how it plays videos on the Kickstarter is still up. You can't like back it, but the page is always going to be there. So if you type in Godspeed Kickstarter, it should pop up, and then you can go on the game page and see some of the videos and the walkthrough and the pictures and stuff like that if you want more information. But you can pre-order it right now. It's $60, and the estimated release is June.
Yeah, and you go to Kickstarter and you can kick yourself that you didn't get the sweet deluxe edition that I got, because it is pristine. And I'm like, I don't have to be afraid. If I lose a piece, I've got a box full of cardboard pieces. I don't want to replace it, but I've got more pieces. I'm like, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with these. Like, the box is so full, I can't even push it all the way down. It's like overflowing, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
It's great though.
A lot of stuff.
Well, Clay, I've loved getting to talk to you about Godspeed. We're proud of you guys. We're excited for you guys. And again, like we said, this is just the beginning. You guys could go to infinity and beyond. Who knows?
Who knows?
A little corny Buzz Lightyear there. I mean,
I don't mind Buzz Lightyear. I'm down with it.
It's awesome stuff. But yeah, go out, check out Godspeed. It's definitely going to be worth your time if you're into board games, or if you're just like, hey, I got $60 and I want to support a guy in TRG. Bam, hook him up. Or you can give it as a gift. I mean, people love board games. Give it as a gift.
I love your
Speaking of gifts and of thank yous, this is the time of the show where we thank our patrons for their continued support. Thank you, all of those. So I'm going to read through this list real quick. We've got Alice Castellanos, Andre Swan, Andrew Steedman, Ashley Cronenbiter, Caleb Schmidt, Christopher Commander, Colin Gregory, Connor Felty, David Matthews, Derek Smith, Phelan Film, Jake Walker, James Barker, Jesse Panu, Joanne Monroe, Josh Broccolo, Coca Rodaki, Lava Burner, Mark Frome, Matthew White Chocolate McDougal, Melvin Benson V, Micah Hendrick, Micah Toller, Nate McKeever, Retro Rewind Podcast, Sam White, Sam Kalunga, and Wesley Ray. Thank you, patrons, for, again, allowing us to do this. Podcast allowing us to keep the lights on, to be able to play games, to be able to get on here and talk. I mean, you guys, like he was talking about a product, you guys pay to listen to Logan and I talk about video games. I don't get it. I don't feel like I got that much good to say, but you guys keep supporting us. So thank you for supporting us. It really does. I mean, it means a lot. I mean, money is tight for all of us. We're all trying to be good stewards. And so the fact that you think that supporting us is worth the stewardship of your money, we really appreciate it. So thank you guys for your continued giving. So Clay, before we take off, of course, we've already recommended that our people check out Godspeed. Do you have any other recommendations for our dear listeners?
The only thing I'll say is, for the longest time, I've been searching for a headset that I like, and I've gone through a bunch of different kinds of headsets, and they all break on me for some reason. I went through Sony Golds and some other things, and I recently found a headset, and I've had it on my head for a little while now, and I'm in love. If you want a headset for less than $100 that also works on your Nintendo Switch wirelessly, that's right, you heard me, on your Nintendo Switch wirelessly by just plugging in a dongle into the USB-C port, and also works on your PS4 and your PC and pretty much any other device that has USB-C. The Arctis One Headset by SteelSeries has been a game changer for me. It is very comfortable. It is incredibly responsive when it comes to things like just the effects when I'm playing a game. It's not like true surround sound or anything, but it's awesome soundscapes, and the convenience is incredible. As an example, I unplugged it from my Switch and I plugged it into the laptop right now, just this USB-C little adapter, and it immediately worked. I didn't have to pair it. I didn't have to do anything special with it. And you can get it on sale here and there on Amazon for like $80. So it's not even, up there with some other gaming headsets. So that's my recommendation personally. I love it. It's been a game changer for me. And if you have a Switch, can't recommend it enough.
Nice. Yeah. Nintendo's issues, one of them being their Bluetooth that's a whole nother. Again, as something I want to recommend, there's a podcast, or I guess it's a YouTube series. If you listen to the Kind of Funny Guys at all, one of the guys that comes on there is Gary Whitta. He's one of their hosts, I think, on Wednesdays. He like wrote for Star Wars. He's kind of a big timer, but he started a podcast or a YouTube series called Animal Talking. He's turned his Animal Crossing house, one of the rooms, into like a late night studio, and he brings people on, and it's just their Animal Crossing characters. They've got like a couch, a desk. They've got a guy that kind of co-hosts with him who's over on the drums, and it's really funny. Again, I haven't listened to all of them, so I don't know, sometimes again there can be some language and some stuff like that, but in general it's been pretty clean. His daughter helps him with it because they play Animal Crossing together, so it's relatively family friendly. But they've had guys like Elijah Wood on there, Danny Trejo. He's like he's been, I think, yes, Danny. He's in a bunch of like horror films and stuff like that. He plays Animal Crossing. Some people in the gaming industry. He had a couple different actors. He had T-Pain on his episode. Like that's what got me into it. I saw a snippet where he's like, I can't stop laughing. And who would have thought T-Pain would be playing Animal Crossing? But this guy got him to come on, and so it's kind of like watching a late night show. He interviews and they do some different things. So if you're big into Animal Crossing and you're just looking for something fun to watch on YouTube, check out Animal Talking by Gary Whitta. It's pretty funny. So, all right. Well, thank you again for listening to the Reformed Gamers. This is episode 168 again. Go over and check us out on Patreon. Follow us on Twitch, on Twitter, like us on Facebook, all the things. Check out our website. Thank you for listening and thank you for following us. Clay, thank you again for coming on and giving us the lowdown on Godspeed. Hopefully we got some people interested. But until next time, GG and amen.
Amen.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Reformed Gamers, the podcast all about theology and gaming. TRG is edited by Dear Ear Productions, so thank them for the buttery smooth tones in your ear. If you're looking for extra content, head on over to youtube.com/TheReformedGamers. The Reformed Gamers is entirely fan-supported over on patreon.com/TheReformedGamers by our dear patrons. The following deer are at the producer level or higher and will forever be thanked at the end of each show, as long as their pledge comes through, or we forget to update the audio. Those people are David Matthews and Wesley Ray. Thank you for your support on patreon.com, keeping our controllers charged, and supporting Logan in his never-ending quest to collect them all. Platinum trophies, that is. So be a deer and keep it locked here. Keep listening. We'll catch you later.